My job today is to make a new bridge. This is a Brazilian rosewood bridge from a D21, and it's thin. It's really super thin. I think it's the original bridge. I don't think it's been shaved down or anything, but it's just a very thin bridge. It's 275 thousandths of an inch up here, 0.275 up here, and it ought to be about 0.340. So it's really thin. The guy's doing it, the owner's doing an equity shed. He wants me to make him a new bridge of the proper height, which is, yeah, I agree with you on that. You know, we should have a more average height bridge on this thing if we're going to reset the neck. But my job here is to duplicate this exactly as can be done. And I'm going to show you a little trick for scraping the blank down to really match this, and that's the whole point of this whole video. And so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on showing you how to actually do every single step on this bridge. I have another video on that, but I'm going to give you real quick the highlights of this. I'm going to do a lot of it, and then we're going to get to the actual trick and tip that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to lay the bridge down on here, and I'm going to just take my pencil and do an outline, get a real quick outline of this thing. I'm going to go over to the bandsaw, and I'm going to shape all this down to get a rough outline, and then we will be back, and I'll show you the whole point of this video then. Okay? So there's a pencil line. Gives me just a rough outline of that bridge for right now, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, here we are. I've got the bridge to the thickness I want it using the bandsaw. Shaped it out here. I've got it sanded down almost to my mark right there. And normally I wouldn't have to be this precise, but because I'm trying to duplicate this bridge as exactly as possible, and I'm not doing the installation, it has to be really precise now. And just sanding to those marks is not going to do it. So here's the trick, okay? Take your original bridge, put a piece of tape on the bottom of it so that you got tape on there, not glue. Then I use super glue, and I'm going to go ahead and put a couple drops on this. If it comes out, it's pretty cold in here. A couple drops of super glue. This is number 30. It's pretty thick stuff. And then lay it on top of your bridge that we're going to file. And I'm not worried about getting super glue on this bridge because I'm not even done sanding it. Yeah, so I'm going to sand that off. But I definitely don't want to sand on the original. Okay, so I'm going to get that clamped on there, smear it in, let it dry. Then what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to walk over here and drop this in the vise for a little bit. Let this glue dry for a few minutes. And then while I'm doing that... Okay, finally, here we go. I know it's just a few minutes on the video, but it's taken me an hour to get to this stage. So what I'm going to do is I got a razor blade here, and the utility razor blade. I use these as scrapers all the time. I've got a piece of tape right here so that it won't cut right on this section. And this is pretty heavy duty brown tape. You could use blue tape, you could use strapping tape, whatever. The whole idea is to treat this like a router bit, where you have a router guide, and then the bit up here, so the guide goes along the thing you're trying to route. Same principle here. I don't want to scrape away on the original bridge, but I want to scrape this down to that level. So I take the tape, and I just hold that right there on the bridge and do your scraping this way. And that way, you don't cut the original bridge, but you can end up making a very, very, very close copy of it. And that's what you do. Just work on this like this. Takes a long time. This is why I don't regularly do it this way. But we're trying again to make an exact copy of this thing. And just make sure you hold that tape right there so that it works. The tape rides on the original. You don't cut that. And then your scraping blade is going to be over here. And you scrape on this. And it's going to take me 30 minutes to get this right. But it's the best way I've found for making a really good exact copy of a bridge that you got to do here. And yeah, I wish I had a CNC machine where I could scan this bridge and then have the CNC cut me one out, but you know, I don't do this that often. Most of the time when I put a bridge on there, I'm putting it on, and if I need to make a little bit of adjustment in the bridge or in the finish or, you know, whatever, I can do that. But it's going to a customer who's going to expect to drop it right straight down into the footprint of the existing bridge, and that's a difficult proposition. Even if you were to buy a bridge from TJ Thompson or Stu Mack, sorry to mention you guys in the same breath, if you were to buy a pre-made bridge like that, what's the guarantee that it's going to be exactly the right size that you need? And this is as best as I can do on this. And so I'm just scraping away. And when I get down to the very nitty-gritty, I'll probably use some sandpaper to make sure the contours are all smooth and everything. And then I will shape the bridge itself and do the wings and drill the holes and do all that stuff. But this will give me the most exact footprint that I can do by hand. So there we go. That's really all it is to it. I call this the Frank Ford trick because Frank Ford taught this method for scraping finishes, and he would put a second piece of tape on this side so that the top is protected, and you would just be scraping finish in the middle. Anyway, go look it up. And you got to replace your tape every so often because it does wear out. So when it gets close to it, rip it off, put a new piece of tape on, continue onward. So, all right, I'm going to be doing this next half hour or so. I'll show you the bridge when we get further along, but that's the point of the video. Well, I'm almost done with it. I took it out and took a look at it and checked it, but as you get closer and closer to your goal of the original bridge, you're going to find that it doesn't shave anymore, which, you know, it should, because you're done with all the excess material. So watch the difference now. As I scoot this across here, I get almost no shavings, as compared to earlier where I was ripping off big old pieces of shaving. So you're pretty safe coming back here and shaving as much as you want. You can't overshave when you have that piece of tape like that, you see, and as long as you don't angle your razor down, you've got to know how to use your tools. And I am, you know, bracing my fingers here so that I'm holding the razor straight, not letting it tilt up and down. So you have to, you have to know how to use your tools. But as I get closer, so my point is you can't really overshave it, because that's the whole point of using this tape here. And so right now I'm getting just tiny little pieces of dust, and this is the final piece here. And that's it. Man, I got nothing on that pass, so I'll show you. That looks pretty good. So going to be impossible to show that on the camera, but you can see my new shape hidden back behind it. And there's a few spots right here where there's just a little bit of like a little ripple. That'll happen as you skip over the wood with your scraper. It'll do that. And some people can scrape, and they can scrape the entire thing so that it looks better than sanding. I'm not that good at it. I always take a piece of sandpaper at the very end, and again, hold it here and just smooth those curves a little bit, if they need them. This side looks really good, but of course I'm pushing the wood a different way. But so that's all I'm going to do is just smooth out this little piece right here. Didn't even take any wood off of it. Smoothing those ripples off. And I've still got to cut the wings, and I've still got to cut all that, and so I'm going to lose a lot of that when I do that. So, but there's a pretty exact copy. Now, since this is glued in here, I'm going to take the opportunity to punch in the bridge pin holes here, but I am not going to punch all of the holes. I trust my jig more than I trust punching all of these holes and getting them all lined up. I trust the two end holes, but then I'm going to take my jig and I'm going to lay it down there on my marks, and I'm going to punch the rest of the holes using the jig with a line on it and all that stuff, and I'll show you that when I get to it. The only thing I need to do now is I need to go get the edges, the corners, and I'll probably just go over here to the belt sander and do that very, very carefully with this bridge still on there. I'm not going to hit it. You can't scrape cross end grain like that. You know, you need to sand that. But that shouldn't be any problem. I got this one really close, so I just need to get this squared off a little bit more. And the original bridge edges are not squared either. If you look real close on this one, it's got a little bit of rounding going on. You know, the original bridges were made by hand. So here's my pile of shavings. This is pretty cool. I'm not a woodworker, you know, so it's fun to pick up stuff like that. But I'll tell you, these utility razor blades, I use them constantly for scraping, finishes, things like this, you know, all kinds of stuff. So, all right, I'm going to touch this up, then I'll punch the holes. I'll go ahead and show you how I punch the holes, just so you have it on video, and you can watch it if you want to. I've already done it before, so you can skip out of here right now if you want to. Otherwise, you can hang on. That. And then this is pretty good. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to sight down this sucker, because that's my mantra. If it looks good, it is good. And I noticed on the other bridge immediately that it didn't look good. And I am definitely going to wash that A. Alright, kids, we're done. Okay, which one is it? This is it. Here's the final, completed bridge. As good as I can do. And I got everything looks really good on this one. I mean, I'm really pleased with this one. It took me about 4 hours total. I had to make a couple of jigs. I have never cut, in 25 years, man, I wonder how many bridges I've done. I've done over 600 neck resets. So I know I've done at least 300 or 400 bridges. I have not once cut one off the guitar, the saddle slot off the guitar. I always cut them on the guitar because that's my last chance to get the intonation correct. Meaning I put that saddle slot where I want it. I've never done it off the guitar. So I had to figure out a jig and rig it all up here, and, you know, to cut this thing, and I did not want this moving and ruining it. So I had to test run it on the bridge that I ruined. And this is the bridge that I ruined. This is Brazilian rosewood. And I stopped before I finished it. So let's look at the one I did do good. So here's your saddle slot. Everything looks really, really good on this. I'm very pleased with this one. And I guess the only thing I have to do is cut some slots in the bridge here for the strings. So he'll have that ready to go. I'll check with him and see. There we go, though. So here's the original. And they're not going to fit. You know why? Because I built them like this. Bottom on top like this. And so you're never going to, there's too many angles here. So that's why I did it when it was square. But here's the original one. Here's the new one. This one's taller. 340 down to 320 over here. And so there we go. But you know, this is Madagascar rosewood. And this is Brazilian, and honestly, this one's Brazilian. I know this is Brazilian because I cut it. Man, if you handed those to me, I'd be hard-pressed to tell you, you know, definitively that this was Brazilian and this is Madagascar rosewood. I mean, they're just so close in appearance. This is the Brazilian. The Brazilian's got these little streaks going across it right here, but so does the Madagascar, you know. Now, when you get a Brazilian with that black streak in it, then you know you've got it. You know, that's characteristic. That's diagnostic. I haven't seen anything else with those black streaks going down it. But those are also weak spots, and so I tend to avoid those in bridges. But this one, this is the original, and it's so dark, it really doesn't have any characteristics. You know it's not Indian rosewood, because the grain pattern is just different. I could tell you that's not Indian. Yeah, you can see here that, you know, these lines coming across. That's not Indian rosewood. It doesn't. The pores aren't the same. And that's probably what would be the giveaway here. The Madagascar doesn't quite have the pores. It's got the streaks up on the top, but it doesn't have the pores down here. This is really smooth, super smooth. Whereas you take this piece of Brazilian here and you can see these pores. I can see them in the light when I'm twisting it around here, and I can see these pores. But the point is, this is really close. I mean, you know, I prefer the Madagascar. So, all right, I got it. I'm not going to quit looking at it because I'm going to find something wrong with it. No, this is really good. I'm very pleased. If you look at the holes on this one, just look at the holes, eyeball them, and then eyeball this one. Stop. Yeah, you can see what happened here is this hole scooted forward. Now these three I think are in a row, and it's like these three are in a row and these three are in a row, but the two rows are shifted, and to get these two together, you can really see that. But also, look at the distance between the pinholes, and that's what throws my eye more than anything. This distance here is greater than any of the other ones, and it just doesn't look right. It's not bad, but I'm not gonna, you know, the guy's buying a bridge from me. So if you sight down at like this, you can see the pins. Let me get the camera. There we go. There we go. See the pinholes? And you can see the zigzag in them. Whereas this one, that's as perfect as I can do. That is at least as perfect as the original. You know, you gotta look back and look at the original. It's pretty good. Not just as good. And this one, Well, I'm going to send in this bridge and maybe he can do something with it. I could, because it's Brazilian rosewood, you could plug the holes, drill them out all the way. I shouldn't have countersunk them. When I was countersunking them, I was trying to save it, trying to wriggle that hole over a little bit. I couldn't do it. If I would not have countersunk them, this job would be easier. You could plug those holes with really anything you wanted. You could plug them with ebony if you wanted to, and then you could remark your holes and get them straight, and then re-drill them. And if you did it right, you would hide everything, because it's just off, you know, 5/1000ths of an inch or something, but your eye sees it. But when I countersunk it, I made that job a lot harder. So, but I'm going to send it to him. So, all right, see you later.